the Ticats Audio Network. This is the CFL This Week with Bubba O'Neil.
Well, the contenders for Grey Cup glory have been cut to 4. How did we get here? Who surprised and who was a disappointment in the division semifinals? This issue and much more as we look back at the week that was in the Canadian Football League. This is the CFL This Week on the Ticats Audio Network. I'm your host, Bubba O'Neil. And as always, along with me, 3 men with a whole lot of 3-down knowledge and experience. Hey, he played the game for a dozen years at the highest level in 2 of the CFL's premier markets. From the Ticats Audio Network, Andy Fantuz, always great to work with you.
Hey, Bubs, thanks for having me on, bud. It's it's nice to be doing it on a kind of a different platform here.
No doubt. Hey, this fella's coming off a week off because his team is just so darn good. He's the voice of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers from 680 CJOB, Derek Taylor. DT, always appreciate your time when you check in.
Thank you. I'm happy to not have COVID and be back with you guys because that kept me away for a couple of weeks from joining you. So I appreciate you being consistent and having me back.
And sound that rookie alert, the rookie alert. With that said, he played for many years with the Calgary Stampeders O-line and came up with the likes of Colin Kaepernick at the University of Nevada. John Bender, great to have you on board.
For sure. Thanks for having me.
All right, guys, let's get right to it. We'll start with the East semifinal. Alouettes sprint out to that 16-point first half lead. They eliminate the Tiger Cats finally 28-17. I'll start with you, Andy Fantuz. You were right there for the broadcast. What was your biggest surprise and biggest disappointment for either team, really?
Well, I think the biggest surprise was that the Ticats didn't try to establish the run early and throughout the game. They had such success with that in the final third of the season, where they went 5-1. Once West Hills, the emergence of West Hills, spelled by Sean Thomas Erlington, and to only have 8 carries total by your running backs was really surprising to me. I think I was really impressed by Trevor Harris and the Montreal offense and also the game plan that Noel Thorpe put together to attack the Ticats. A lot of pressure to kind of deter Tommy Condell from calling those run plays, and then and when they tried to throw, there was 6 sacks in the game. So I think that was my takeaway was how the Alouettes really dominated the line of scrimmage.
DT, what did you see?
My biggest surprise was how readily Montreal was able to score against the Hamilton defense. I looked at that defense and thought, apart from Dylan Wynn, that appears to be most of their top personnel, and those are good players. Like front to back, Javon Santos Knox is a borderline all-star. Simone being Simone, the back 6 is terrific. The front can normally get pressure, and Montreal just kind of walked the ball down the field in the first half of the game with 3 touchdowns. That to me was by far the most surprising part of this thing because, it was Geno Lewis, really. Like that was the offense, and then here's a Walter Fletcher 33-yard run. So, yeah, the first half Hamilton defense was for me the big surprise.
John, your thoughts?
For sure. So I'm an old offensive lineman, and of course I'm going to lean this direction, but I think that game was won on the line of scrimmage for sure. You look at the Ticats, what they were able to do on offense. They had, less than 40 plays on offense. They weren't able to sustain drives. They weren't able to get their run game going. And when you give up sacks, in any level of football, it kills drives, but especially in the CFL. You give up a sack and all of a sudden it's 2nd and long or the drive's over. So, they gave up 6 sacks. They also, those, quarterback rushing, they led to turnovers. They had forced fumbles. They had interceptions. There was problems all over the line of scrimmage, and they weren't able to sustain drives. So when you're not great on first down, a lot of those plays are going to be over. You look at their run game, they were only able to, they only had 8-9 rushes, I think, the whole game. So if you're not able to get your run game going, get your offensive line going, it's going to be a long day for you.
The crazy thing is, and I know there's a sort of feeling that, that Montreal were stacking the box, Andy, and that they were not going to allow Hamilton to run. With that said, it wasn't like the Ticats even tried to establish that run, which was so successful with Wes Hills. You brought up his name. I mean, his ability to run over center and over tackle and guard has been so successful over those last 5 games, but it was like they didn't even try to test.
Yeah, I would have expected more RPO, like run pass option from Tommy in that game. If you're getting a lot of pressure, then you want to throw into that pressure, right? You want to have those quick throws, get the ball out of your hands into your playmakers' hands, and they did some screen passes, wide receiver screen passes, and some swing passes from the backfield, but I didn't see a lot of flats and drags and slants that could really counter that pressure, and so that was surprising to me. If you have a 7-up look and you just try to run into it, it makes sense to kind of call how the game's presenting to you. You can't force a run. You can't force the game to go the way you want it, but there are ways to sort of still call a run, but kind of adjust off it with that run pass option. So I was a little surprised by that.
DT, you brought up Montreal's ability to sort of march down the field. I thought their first down yardage was exceptional, and they just sort of kept picking up these second down conversions and, again, sort of grinding out to first downs and moving down the field, time of possession, so heavily in favor of the Alouettes in the first half. But we want to underrate him somewhat, but what's to be said about Trevor Harris? I mean, not spectacular, but seemingly gets the job done.
Yeah, is there anybody who has been in the league longer who's less appreciated than Trevor Harris, right? And Harris has a ceiling. He has a ceiling, right? But he also carries a high floor in my mind with him as well. And 27 of 34, okay, 1 turnover, but for the most part, the ball is where it should be, when it should be, and then 243 yards. That's great. That's great. We're going to hit the big place. Here's a big play to Geno Lewis. We'll hit a big play in the run game. He does just enough. Could he beat the West representative in the Grey Cup? I kind of believe we'll get a chance to see it, but he does enough, and he does enough. Conversely, compared to say Dane Evans, he does enough safely, and perhaps there's a million reasons why that is, but he's not a guy I'm afraid is going to absolutely lose the plot during the game and have to get taken out. He's going to do enough to get you there, and if you've got the weapons to work with him, that's Trevor Harris's world. Now, should they get to the Grey Cup and Henry Burrs comes in to finish it off? Well, we'll see what happens. Anything can happen in 2022, right? But, Trevor Harris is a guy that's, in a league that's currently got, 2 real quarterbacks I think teams are super secure with. Trevor Harris is a good maybe number 3, 4, 5 for a team.
I think it's interesting to get the opinions of the outsiders, of people that are not, watching Hamilton every single down in practice and that kind of thing. John, your thoughts on the quarterback situation in Hamilton and where they go forward?
I would say it's a fluid situation. There's going to be some quarterbacks that are going to come up this offseason, whether it's Cody Fajardo, whether it's Bo Levi Mitchell, whether there's, some other quarterbacks that are available to move around. I mean, the CFL is a league where a lot of the quarterbacks, a lot of the players just don't have, multi-year deals. And every couple of years, there's this internal shuffle of the quarterbacks, of the players, of people moving around trying to find better opportunities for them. And I mean, if you look at the Ticats, if they have a 1A, 1B, because they did use 2 quarterbacks in the playoff game, it's the old adage, if you have 2 starting quarterbacks, you have 0 starting quarterbacks. So if you have an opportunity to go find a guy that you think might be a better fit, whether it's Cody Fajardo, Bo Levi Mitchell, somebody to add into the room, I think that might be something they look to do. And maybe they bring back Dane Evans. Maybe they bring back, any number of quarterbacks, but it just has to, that room has to be a little bit stronger. And I think that they need to find, a better fit here moving forward, because the Ticats have been a good football team for a lot of years, but they just haven't been able to get over that hump to be the Grey Cup champs that they want to be.
Andy, can they win with both? Like, is that a possibility?
I think it's a possibility, but I kind of agree with John here. You want to have your guy, and the Ticats in the past have had a 1-2 punch when Derek mentioned Henry Burris when he was here with Dan Lefevre. It wasn't like who's a better player. It was just different packages, and that's what I kind of more expected in that game yesterday was Matthew Schultz to come in as more of maybe a running threat as a quarterback, get him on the perimeter to maybe run or pass. But you didn't see that. He was just running the same offense as Dane. And I think that's a dynamic that's tough to really build upon, like a foundation to build upon. So I think that the Ticats will be looking hard at this positional group. Matthew Schultz certainly impressed me, and I think a lot of people coming in this year. And he didn't necessarily have the strongest arm. You could see it in training camp, but you knew what you were going to get out of him, and he was going to be pretty consistent. He was going to be able to read the field. He had his poise to him, a physicality when he was running the ball. Where Dane maybe a little more electrifying when he's on, but a little more of a much more negative when he's not on, with the fumbles and the errant throws and taking more sacks. So I think both these guys are good, and I was a believer that Dane could be a CFL champion quarterback, and we'll see what the Ticats do if they want to bring in some more competition for next year. The jury's still out for me on this one.
Final word to you on this, Derek Taylor, and I know we talked about this way earlier in the season. Can Dane Evans bring you to the promised land?
I've never seen, I think, what the Ticats see in Dane Evans. I mean, the Grey Cups and the playoff runs, for me, have just kind of been like, okay, well, though this is the cap. That said, I called the game in Hamilton this year where Dane played the best game he may ever play in his lifetime, and he absolutely murdered the Bombers, right? So I've seen the highest highs, and I've seen now the lowest lows. I just don't see it on a regular basis. And I thought yesterday there was a moment where Hamilton's going right to left, and Montreal brings pressure. I thought, oh, well, Dane's actually doing a decent job here. It looks like he's comfortable. And then, the throw goes to hell and gone. And I went, oh, okay, well, this is Dane Evans with unable to, in my mind, handle the big moment. And he's just, I want to like him so much, but to me, there are just real limitations in his accuracy, in his, especially under pressure decision-making, that to me, I would have punted on it quite a while ago. I can totally understand why a team that actually has to make the decision and actually has to have a quarterback to play football wouldn't. But I think I kind of feel like this, if this isn't the end, then what are you hoping improves for next season? And what evidence do you have to back up that it can improve for next season? Because someone next time, next season when it gets tight, someone's going to bring pressure. Someone's going to be the blitzingest team in the CFL as Montreal is next season. Or someone's going to have a Willie Jefferson, Jackson, Jeff Coat, edge that's going to come after you and make your life hell. What's going to be different that time? And I haven't seen it for most of his career, and I still don't, on how is Dane going to get better. I would love it if he did, because he seems like a great dude the couple times I get to talk to him, but it hurts me to say I still don't see it. And we have another one in the box of not there. It's not there.
Let's go out west, guys. Nathan Rourke, BC Lions. They kind of took their time in this one, but they did grind out a victory over the Calgary Stampeders, who actually turned to Bo Levi Mitchell in the late stages of the contest and hopefully saved the day. The veteran comes in. But, John, we'll talk with you. You're in that market. Your biggest surprise or disappointment with either team?
Yeah, I think it was just with the Calgary Stampeders, maintaining drives. At times I think that, they had opportunities to, convert a first down by just doing a simple QB sneak, by running the football, by doing what they need to do. And, I've said this, now I'll preface this by saying I'm sure Dave Dickenson does not care what I think about his play calling. But at times, I think you can really tell there's a quarterback calling the plays. And the quarterback hierarchy that they have in Calgary, from John Huffnagel on down to quarterback, that's all involved in the offensive play calling, you can certainly tell at times. And at times I think they just need to hand the ball off. It's first and goal on the 7, maybe run the football. You might score. Maybe you get 5 yards. Maybe you end up in a quarterback sneak situation, you get in the end zone. Instead, they drop back and pass, and all of a sudden it's 2nd and 20, second and goal from the 20 because they got sacked. So, just little things like that. I think that the play calling, a lot of people were maybe a little bit disappointed, but at the end of the day, Bo Levi Mitchell and Jake Mayer, Bo Levi Mitchell came in and played pretty well at the end, but Jake Mayer, you can't win a playoff football game with 55% completion rate. You got to be able to take shots downfield. You have to be able to find your playmakers, and they just weren't able to do that.
Andy, we talk about Hamilton and sort of their inability to establish a run game. And I think in our times of watching Calgary play Hamilton, we were always impressed at the way they were able to mix up that run and the pass. And it did start with the run, and it just didn't seem like that was even established for the Stampeders to keep the BC Lions off the field.
Yeah, I echo what I said about the East semifinal. I just can't believe that, Kadeem Carey had 8 carries throughout this ball game when he's been the guy. He's their most outstanding player. You got to get the ball in his hands more often. I know he had 5 targets, but only 2 receptions. And the fact that they didn't try to just continuously try to establish that run. And when John said, like in those short yardage, second and short situations, you got to go with what you're good at and build, run with your strengths. So that to me was the biggest takeaway. I thought BC played a great game and they called some key play calls at in the clutch moments. For instance, that Pipkin touchdown was a great play call and execution. And that sort of really was a dagger for the Stamps.
Imagine that, DT. Antonio Pipkin throwing a dagger.
Yeah.
That was a great play call, though.
Well, and this is the third down thing that we have to get to. If you're okay with Antonio Pipkin dropping back into Keon Hatcher, you kind of got to be okay with the Malik Henry end around, right? Like you're going to jam it up the middle 90% of the time, but 10% of the time you're going to have some fun with it. And sometimes your right tackle gets gooned and Malik Henry loses yards. And sometimes Calgary forgets to cover 2 receivers. Either one of whom could have caught the ball, and they you held hands walking into the end zone. It's a lot of fun. It's good when it goes good, right? So that was the thing. And yeah, Calgary was fascinating to me because they changed quarterbacks in midstream this season, saying, hey, Bo doesn't give us the short attack that we need, and we think Jake can deliver it better. Well, Jake didn't. What was there one deep ball in this game? The one that doinked off of Gary Peters' head? Was that it from Calgary in this game, going right to left? Like there was no deep attack they had Malik Henry back in the game, and he was very clearly healthy because they fed him the ball, what seemed like 15 times early on in every conceivable way. But I'm with the guys. I think I'm with Andy in that this is a game where I'm more surprised they didn't run the ball more. In the Hamilton game, Hills or STE would get 2 yards on first down or would not convert on 2nd and 5. In this one, they give him a 2-yard carry on 1st and 20. Well, there's no chance in that one, but 1st and 10, boom, 11 yards. Okay, well, how is there not more of this? How is there not more? You're by far the best run blocking line in the Canadian Football League. People last week were raving that Dedrick Mills is the next great running back in the CFL, which, as John will testify, that scheme and that's offensive line that just it's not coincidence they have 2 guys who put up almost 7 yards a carry because they can move bodies. I don't know that I get the third downs. I get some of the decisions Dickenson made. I absolutely don't get the lack of Kadeem Carey in the run game. And maybe BC had that in mind too and said, we're not going to allow this, but I don't know if you can stop Kadeem Carey and that offensive attack, even if you want to. They were that good this year.
John, on the flip side of the coin there, Nathan Rourke just seemed to gain confidence as the game went on.
Yeah, for sure. From top to bottom, part of that is that the Stampeders are not able to establish their run game and keep their defense off the field. Well, now you got Nathan Rourke and a tired defense, and that's a bad combination. The best thing you can do against a great quarterback like Nathan Rourke is keep him on the sidelines. So the Stampeders weren't able to elongate those drives. They had some turnovers on downs. They had some problems there. And now the BC Lions get the football, and he's able to find the one-on-one targets downfield, throw the jump ball. He's got a great stable of wide receivers there that he can go to, and he did. And whether it's Keon Hatcher, Dominique Rhymes, the list goes on. And he was able to find those guys in crunch time. And yeah, he took a couple sacks. He did a good job holding on to the football. Didn't let that Stampeders D-line get to him too much. And can't say enough about Nathan Rourke and what he could mean for the league, top to bottom. I mean, you look at that quarterback matchup out west, that might be two of the top quarterbacks in the CFL for the next decade. Like, we don't know where it's going to play out from here. Maybe that's a annual playoff meeting we see here in the West, keeps going on for a long time, obviously with Winnipeg in the mix as well. And, we could see a lot of that here moving forward.
Andy, of course, we talk quarterbacks, and Nathan Rourke is definitely just unbelievable. What else can you say about the kid? And I think we all are happy to see him back playing in the postseason. But boy, Brian Burnham, this guy comes back off injury. I mean, and I know Hatcher had the big numbers, and Dominique Rhymes is the guy with the incredible vertical and can get up there. But this Brian Burnham, you would know more about this than at least me. His body control is incredible, and the way he gets up and gets the football.
Yeah, he's a playmaker. He's a gamer. He's a dog. He's one of those guys that you want on your team. He can make the big play, be relied on. When I first came in this league, I had a guy on my team I really looked up to and consider one of my what I thought was the best receiver teammate I ever had, or one of them anyways, was Matt Dominguez. And I know they're playing slightly different positions, but he was just a guy that you can just count on and to make that play and throw in those clutch times. So, yeah, I think Brian Burnham, this is kind of like a warm-up game for him and for Nathan Rourke. It's to get ready for Winnipeg. And they both seemed to gain confidence by leaps and bounds as the game went on. And so I'm really looking forward to next week's matchup with both these guys. One more week of solid, healthy gameplay under their belt, coming back from injury.
Let's close. We've obviously got lots to talk about with BC for the next couple of weeks, but DT, I'll come back to you in this one with Calgary. Is there any world where you see Bo Levi Mitchell playing with Calgary again, coming back? Is there anything they could do? We talk about this 2 quarterback system, and maybe Jake Maier, it was his first playoff game and didn't impress. Anything you could see there?
No, not at all. I mean, and then Bo puts it out on social media yesterday. I don't think he committed to Maier through 2024. They were the first team out of the gate to commit to their quarterback long term under these new deals. I just can't see it. There's just no way that happens. And they're a different offensive team than they were in the Bo era, right? In the Bo Levi Mitchell era, they were the deepest attacking team in the CFL, and Bo was like, you know what? Yeah, you think I can't take the deep middle of the field? Watch me. And now it's checkdowns and swing passes, and here's a little flare to Begelton, and let's get something short and consistent and underneath. And I think it's just a different era. So to me, zero chance that Bo's back. 7 other teams, there's a real chance he's there, but not Calgary for next season.
John, all trust in Jake Maier going forward?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I think they're going to bring back both Jake Maier and Tommy Stevens. I think they really think they have something here in Tommy Stevens as well. And, he's going to be the short yardage guy that maybe has a few packages throughout the season. But yeah, Jake Maier is going to be their guy. And he had, he played some great games, in the regular season, and he's going to only continue to hopefully get better from here. He's a young quarterback. He's got a live arm. He can, hit the checkdowns. He's super accurate. They like that. And as long as he can limit the turnovers, and the Stampeders keep doing what they've been doing over the last decade on defense and on special teams, they should be able to, win a lot of football games here moving forward.
Well, they certainly protect him well. Was the number under 20 sacks this season, which, I mean,
15, yeah.
I mean, I know Danny Mack had a crazy season going back at 98. I think he only got sacked 10 times, but it's insane to be able to play that amount of football, throw that many passes, and not get roughed up. DT, I'll come to you, and I say this because out of respect, because you spent time in this market. The Roughriders announced that GM Jeremy O'Day and head coach Craig Dickenson will return for 2023. But Jason Maas, the offensive coordinator, gets whacked. 3 other offensive coaches, they are, guess their contracts will not be renewed. Based on what you saw, and you saw this team more than anyone else from a visiting standpoint, was Maas the fall guy? Did he's the guy that has to pay the price for what was a disappointing season in Regina?
Oh, absolutely. Like Maas, Steven Sorrell's the offensive line coach, and Travis Moore, who is a tremendous receivers coach who guys love it and is a great guy to talk to and a legend in this league, are the guys that end up being the fall guys for this. To me, it's a coach's cap thing, right? You can't just now clean house because those salaries go on your football operations cap for the following season. So you have to make your changes in spots. To me, Maas or Fajardo had to go because 2 years where you looked at it and went, these guys, they may be, I said it before, they may be great taste, but they don't taste great together, right? They're clearly not chocolate and peanut butter. They're, I don't know, peanut butter and red onion or something. Whatever. They just don't work well together. So somebody's got to go. I've been a couple lines on Craig Dickenson of in his first 2 years, that team was 22-10, right? They had put up a tremendous record, 6-12 this year. So from a record perspective, I would think there's every reason he should see a 4th year. But for me, it struck me as weird when I covered the Riders, and it struck me as weird again this year of just the year over year, we're going to lead the league in penalties. And there was a point in 2021 where we were doing a media scrum and we asked Coach Dickenson, hey, you guys are still taking penalties like they're going out of style. What are you going to do about it? And he said, well, we've told the guys not to take penalties, but there's nothing after that. There's nothing else we can do. And that struck me as odd going, you could cut somebody, you could sit somebody, you could put somebody's job at risk. Like you could snap them to it. The Bombers make guys do push-ups every time somebody, takes a pre-snap penalty in practice. There are things you could do, and it didn't quite click. So I don't know if I maybe misunderstood what he meant, but it also made me think, has he never thought of, cutting a guy for taking dumb penalties? And then Garrett Marino happens this season, and you go, oh, is this a fatal flaw in Coach Dickenson? And we'll get a better idea in 2023 now that he will be back. But from a record perspective, roll on. But from the discipline thread that's been woven through 3 years, despite great success, you wonder if that was going to be enough to have him being on the outside.
Andy, you still got contacts out there. You played half your career. What happened there this year really had to be surprising from your standpoint.
Yeah, I actually completely agree with Derek there that something has to happen, and you can't clean everyone out because of salary issues. I think Craig, to echo the point of maybe he doesn't care about penalties so much, I think he wanted the players to play with chippiness. I think he liked that approach and that culture in his locker room. And that with the Garrett Marino incident where he was getting a lot of pressure from the CFL, from fans, from who knows how many different ways he was getting pressure to do something. But he was still a guy kind of preaching inside the locker room that this is how we want to play tough. We want to play gritty. We're not taking any BS from anyone. And then he goes and makes a move that he wasn't forced to make. I think that kind of lost him the locker room, in my opinion. I think the guys are like, wait a minute, you told us that, what we do inside here is between us, and this is how we're going to approach the game. And now you're getting pressure from other outside influences, and now you make a move. I'm not saying I disagree with the move and what Garrett Marino did and what his results should have been, but if it might not have been necessarily Craig Dickinson's job to do something about it. And I think that really hurt the Riders because it was sort of like, wait a minute, are you a player's coach now? Are you preaching are you walking what you're talking, or a situation where it's not that? And so Yeah, it was a strange year because of that. And that was kind of really when they made that dip and what did they finish, like 1-11 or something like that in the
They
final?
started, didn't they start 4-1?
Yep.
Yeah, I think
crazy.
5-1, and then they were 1-11 to finish, if I'm not mistaken. Anyway, something like that.
It's insane.
So-
And John, like, I mean, to continue on what Andy's saying there, sort of culture, what's going on in there. I thought it was interesting when Craig, I guess this isn't when things started to fall apart later in the year, that last quarter of the season. And he kind of said, we're not a very good football team right now, which I don't know. I feel like a million coaches say. And then Moncrief goes on social media and starts talking about, well, that's not what he's telling us. And then that's to me an obvious, some type of schism, or there's something going on in that locker room there that has become very public.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, top to bottom, you look at the Roughriders season. I mean, I think the way that they handled a lot of things could have been a lot different. You look at Cody Fajardo as a great example. You know, he took 77 sacks this year the Roughriders gave up, and 60 some were on Fajardo. Like, the number's insane amount of contact. And Fajardo was playing hurt, most of the season. And I mean, as the Roughriders organization, you should look at this and say, hey, maybe we give him the time to recover from whatever this injury is, rather than trying to run him out there every week and, take the sacks, take the hit. So you want to talk about fall guys. I think they kind of turned Cody Fajardo into another one of their fall guys, where now he's going to enter free agency, either come back to the Roughriders on a way less contract because, didn't throw up big numbers this year, or he's going to end up on another team. And when the season was on the line, they, once again, like we talked about the locker room here, you had this warrior that went to battle for you all year, took 60 some sacks, injured, and now the season's on the line and you want to put his backup quarterback in?
Yeah.
Like, what are we doing here? Like, we played the whole season with Fajardo this way. He's finally looking healthy, finally playing better, and now we're going this direction. So I think there's a lot of things there in the locker room where, I kind of expected them to clean house top to bottom. But, we saw what that happened in Edmonton last year when they cleaned house. They brought in not a lot of coaches this year. I don't know how many CFL organizations or any organizations in pro sports can go 2 seasons without winning at home and still expect to have season ticket holders and sponsors and fan base the next year. So, I mean, maybe this will be a kind of a slow deterioration. Maybe Dickinson's contract's up at the end of next year. They don't have to buy him out. I don't know. We'll see how this plays out, but it doesn't look like a great situation there for them in Sask.
Derek, I'll ask you the same question I asked you about Dane Evans, about Cody Fajardo. Can he win you a Grey Cup?
I think he can. I'm surprised at the turn fans have kind of done on Fajardo. Like John mentioned some of it. Like 2019 into that West final, Fajardo had torn 2 muscles in an oblique. They had to sneak him into the hospital on Sunday morning. The doctor, wearing his Riders shirt, shoots him up so he can get out there and play against the Bombers. I mean, if not for one crossbar, they may well have been Grey Cup champions that year. They would have taken on Hamilton in the Grey Cup. Like Fajardo is out there and all the sacks, just all the sacks. This a professional football team in the year of our Lord 2022 putting Ty Rogers at right tackle for 9 games this season. And after about 4, I was getting texts from Sask going, what has happened? Why is this guy out here? Like, repeatedly getting gooned for sacks. Did he take 8 holding penalties in 9 games? Like, that is an incredible number. And they just kept on keeping on with that. Offensive line problems all over the place. Evan Johnson hasn't turned out to be what they wanted. Dan Clark gets hurt. There's not much you can do about that because rookie Logan Bandy is going to get, Almondo Siwo is going to take him and throw him into the stands. That stuff kind of happens. Logan Furland, kid out of juniors a couple years ago, rough times. Revolving door left tackle, Taron Vaughn, troubles. Andrew Lauderdale, who famously once said, "I'm not a great pass blocker." Okay, well, how does an offensive line? I'm all over the place, but how does an offensive lineman GM think that offensive line is acceptable to put out for an entire season? So as Fajardo, people are going, well, Fajardo's got to throw the ball away. Well, when you're pinned in there in a second and a half, and now the defensive tackle puts himself through your rib cage, what do you want a quarterback to do? I still see a quarterback who, I mean, his scramble game is elite. His designed running game when he's healthy is elite in the Canadian Football League. Fajardo is an accurate passer. Just from the years of charting I've done, he's an accurate passer. It's not the biggest arm. He may not be the best reader of a full field situation, but I'm fully on Fajardo has enough in the CFL. And if it's not in Sask, it certainly should be somewhere else. And John and Andy can talk better to this. There are questions about him. Is he the guy in the locker room that other guys will follow into the fire? That's going to be the biggest part. But I think skill for skill, he is certainly viable in the Canadian Football League.
Andy, then let me throw this to you, because I mean, you would understand this with offenses, and Derek brought it up earlier that about the meshing or the communication and the chemistry that needs to happen for, I guess, especially a quarterback and the offensive coordinator. And Jason Maas, I mean, I'd heard he had like some 500 playbook, and that it was hard to digest for some quarterbacks, and that even goes further back into his days with Ottawa and even Toronto. When your offensive coordinator and there was several times the TSN cameras saw them in some heated battles. Is that bad? Like, I mean, do you need to have that chemistry? Do you need to be in love with each other in terms with your quarterback and your offensive coordinator? Because I mean, I'll say this, and this is no shot, but this is just the 1 year that I'm covering the team. It appeared to me that Jason Maas was kind of a hard guy to get to love.
I think you do need that chemistry between the quarterback and offensive coordinator, because they work together hand in hand for so many hours of the day. Like, those two spend more time together than any other two people in the whole organization, I would think, you know. So maybe an offensive line coach and the coordinator, but other than that, or the center and the offensive line coach, like, those are kind of the offensively anyways, the people that spend the most time together. And so I think you do need that. And it's not like Jason Maas just forgot how to call plays all of a sudden, but perhaps there was a little lack of attention to detail in some of those plays if he's trying to put them in. Like, we saw that a bit in Hamilton too, I think, where Tommy Condell, who you know has the track record, he has a great playbook, but if they're throwing too many plays in and you don't rep them, if you don't have those vets who are kind of bringing everyone along, like the Riders had for their year, you know, like 10 years ago for those years, it's hard to put that in. So maybe simplifying things is a good way. As far as Cody Fajardo, I mean, you look across the league, and you know, I think Derek or John said there's only 2 teams or 3 teams who do have a bona fide starter, other than Zach Caleros, who is a championship quarterback. If you look around, yeah, of course, Nathan Rourke's got the skill set, but he hasn't been there before. I guess you got Trevor Harris, but he wasn't the starter at the start of the season. So you look across the league, and you could say that about anyone. Do I think Cody Fajardo could win? Sure, I do. Do I think Dane Evans could win? Sure, I do. If you look at the CFL as a whole, scoring is up. Completion percentage is up, yardage is up. All those are up this year. And yeah, I know the rules are changing a bit, and that's helping offenses be more successful, creating a more exciting game. But it's not the years as far as in my era, anyways, where you look across the league and you got, you know, Darian Durant, you got Henry Burris, Bo Levi Mitchell, Ricky Ray, Mike Riley, Travis Lulay, Anthony Calvillo, Trevor Harris, Kevin Glenn. Like, every team seemed to have this legend of a quarterback. And you don't have that right now, sure, but eventually, you know, there was a turnover, and these guys may become those kind of names in the future. You never know, and it's got to start somewhere. And so, you know, if you don't go with Cody Fajardo, who do you go with? Where do you go?
Guys, let's talk about, I guess, an interesting development that happened, I guess, a couple of weeks ago that was responded by the Canadian Football League. An official was, you know, assaulted, quite honestly, at the Cegep level in Quebec. CFL commissioner then responded. Andy Ambrosie, he kind of sent out this open letter. I don't know if it was to fans. I'm going to say it was to fans. It was to coaches, to players, to remind, I guess, everyone that officials and referees need to be respected. John, was this memo or open letter, was that necessary? What were your thoughts about that? I was a little surprised actually when I saw it and read it.
I really liked it. I think for the CFL to show leadership in this issue is a great way to lead, from top to bottom. I mean, if not the CFL, which football body in Canada would you want to come out and say something? So the CFL can show leadership in this issue, which is an issue that we've seen for many years. I mean, I know personally, playing high school basketball against one of our rivals, the game was shut down 5 minutes in because the coach got tossed for getting 3 technical fouls. And that crosstown rivalry that was supposed to be a big game that a lot of people went to, shut down, never happened. And that's something I'll never forget because this is a coach and we're just kids. We just wanted to go out there and have fun, right? And this game was canceled because an adult had a temper tantrum. And I mean, now I play, I'm sure a lot of other guys play weekend warriors, a lot of former retired athletes. And I see games get shut down all the time from people arguing with umpires, arguing with refs, having a hard time finding refs and umpires who are often just retired guys looking to make a little bit of cash. They don't need this headache. They don't need this, situation the way it is. And if, the CFL can come out and say, this is something that's unacceptable, we need to let our fans know, we need to let people that want to, potentially become CFL players in the future know that this is not a way to treat officials. This is not a way to treat people in this, in these places. I think that's a great move by the CFL. I think it shows leadership, and I think that a lot of pro leagues should do similar things.
Derek, do we have a problem with this in the Canadian game?
I don't know that we do because I hadn't heard of the one that you mentioned before. It was kind of sent to me, and I looked at it and went, okay, well, I don't hear a ton about this, so I like it. One of the releases from Football Canada and Jim Mullen does a great job there, says that 2 out of 10 officials make it to their 3rd year of officiating, 20%, and you go, yeah, that's a problem because officiating is a hard life, and when you're 15 and you think it might be fun and you're getting yelled at by adults. And I was a baseball umpire back in the day, and someone said, oh, he's going to have a tough time getting out of here. I'm like, I'm 15. What do you want from me? Fortunately, my 5'1" mother was there to protect me. He's got to ride home. But we don't all have the 5'1" mother who's going to wreck hell in Calgary, Alberta, right? So it's a problem. I always, this one has always kind of stuck with me though. Remember the 2019 East Final? Jonathan Rose shoved an official, then got to play in the Grey Cup, and then was not suspended for that. I'm not going to say, well, you can't say this because you didn't do that, but I want them to take it very seriously at their own level as well. Jonathan Rose never being suspended for shoving an official always is stuck in my craw in the Canadian Football League because these guys and gals need to be protected and need to be supported at all levels. So on this one, I'm happy the CFL chimes in on that because lower level officials who may one day want to be in the CFL need to know that most of us are on their side. There's going to be the outliers who do these kind of things, and attacking an official. Come on, man, that's awful. We're on your side, though, officials.
There's no doubt about that. And I guess, Andy, I think this is maybe one of the topics that I know these two sides kind of clash at times, that maybe this is an opportunity for the PA and the CFL to come together on this one.
Yeah. I think it was positive all around. Not the incident itself, of course, but I liked how Randy shed some light on the fact from the paradigm of, through the glasses of officials, that this is a craft that they work at, they study, they train for, and they climb the ladder. And this is the pinnacle of their vocation as well. And I thought that was a really eye-opening kind of light to shed on it. And, you see in Canada, you go to any kind of rep hockey game for kids, like 10-year-olds or 8-year-olds, and you got parents yelling at the refs, getting kicked out of the arena and stuff. And even if this statement can maybe alter that just the slightest little bit, when you go to high school football games, university level, I mean, these guys are trying, and they're obviously, there's going to be boos. There's going to be people booing because they're fans of the game, fans of the team. And it can be part of the game, which is fun. But when it gets taken too far and there's personal attacks or any kind of physical or verbal abuse, like that's just totally uncalled for. So I'm glad the CFL, I'm glad Randy brought it to light, and if the PA were to get behind it, I would support that as well. I think that's a good call. I didn't really think about it that way.
And it's true because I don't know if there's and I hate to single out this guy, but he does seem to be a target in Andre Proulx. The ref you suck calls it seem to be ringing across the nation at times, and maybe sometimes it's worth it. But you're right, this happens to all officials, Derek, and you're right. I think for the next officials to keep coming up, and that number that you just said is just horrendous. I mean, 2 of 10. Yeah. Because at some point these officials need to be we need to have new officials. Sorry, Andy, go ahead.
Yeah, just to kind of piggyback that, like you see in the NHL, the commentators are often talking up the officials and giving them praise, and you see that even in the NFL, how wonderful they did of a job and how like spot on they are. You don't see that a lot in the CFL, and maybe that needs to change as well, where they get a little more credit publicly, both in game by the broadcast team or through the media.
Yeah, I'll remember that, Andy, in our next broadcast.
Well, and he makes a good point there. Like when we do broadcasts on CJOB, like there are calls we disagree with, and you go, I think that shoving the back on Winston Rhodes was a little more than it should have been, but the officials don't agree. It's the thing you can't do is go, well, this guy is terrible and he's biased and he's against us. You can't do that. You can disagree on interpretations of rules and stuff, right? But that's sports, and it's a high-speed sport, and these are tiny decisions and stuff like that. And I think all that stuff is fair. Just you're biased and you're out to get us. Come on, no. That guy, that gal wants a paycheck, and they're going to do it the best they can. Let's just leave the you're biased and you're ruining my life thing at home. You maybe don't know what pass interference is, sir. To me, is inbounds, but the other stuff we're going a little far.
Yeah, the game. I think people need to be reminded about how quick the game is. I think we're very fortunate, and 2 of you guys have played the game. I don't think sometimes fans realize how big, how fast, and how skilled these players are, John. And to have 7 or 8 guys trying to manage a game. And then you got and I think I'm going to call it the pressure of the television as well too, because we can look at every call over and over and over again. These guys, and I know I'm just as guilty too of being all over the refs at times, but these guys are out there doing the best they can, John.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you look at the CFL refs top to bottom. I mean, you can tell the CFL's games are reffed in the CFL fashion. I can notice clear as day when I watch an NCAA or NFL football game that these games are reffed differently. And the CFL, I think, really puts a onus on player safety, on not riding players out of bounds, throwing them out of bounds, quarterback hits, things like that, because they know that a lot of the players in their league, they want to have healthy as they move into retirement. And I think that that's a good play by the CFL. I think the PA has done a good job with them working on that. And if you're watching the game and you're a casual NFL fan or NCAA fan, you watch the CFL game, you might notice the differences and say, well, shouldn't be. Well, that's the way they call it in the CFL. That's the way the CFL game's been for many years. And the CFL, they don't let you ride guys out of bounds. They don't let you get unnecessary hits, unnecessary contact. And I think that when you watch a lot of games for a long time, you kind of know what to expect. You know what the refs are able to do, and you know how the refs call the game and how the refs control the game. And you look at a game like Saskatchewan where they try to play a little chippy. Well, those penalty flags come flying, and that's just the way it is. That's the way it should be. If they play, as long as they're consistent as a player, I was fine as long as it was consistent. If I knew kind of when I would get a penalty and when I wouldn't, I would know how to kind of, I was a nasty physical offensive lineman. I was that guy that tiptoed that line. And I was always trying to not quite get the penalty, but let the other team know I'm there. So, as long as it's consistent, I'm fine with it.
Many years later, folks, he finally admitted it.
Tiptoed,
All
never
right, guys.
crossed it. Tiptoed it. Yeah.
Let's close up on this, guys. You guys are doing an outstanding job. I guess, Derek, we must start with you because you're back to work this week. Let's have your division winners. We'll start with the West. The Bombers hosting the Stampeders. We'll go West first. We're around the horn, guys. Derek, to you first.
Yeah, Nathan Rourke in that game looked really good, but he didn't look 100% healthy. It didn't look like that foot was 100% there. It's going to have to be. As much as this Winnipeg defense isn't last year's, one of the all-time great defenses, it's still got Willie Jefferson, and they'll probably have Jackson Jeffcoat back to get you. And heaven forbid they send Big Hill on some blitzes this season. He's going to need to be at his full capacity. And I just don't think he is. This Bombers team is incredible with what they've been able to do through all the injuries they've had this season. 15 wins. They mashed this Lions team by 21. I think it was 21 back in week number 5. To me, this is a Bombers victory. However, the Nathan Rourke thing just kind of looms, right? The Nathan Rourke spectacle looms, but top to bottom, I think Winnipeg is better in most spots. Dalton Schoen hasn't practiced in a couple of days, so we'll be keeping our eyes on that very intently in Winnipeg.
Andy, do the Lions have a chance at IG Field?
I was a big fan of those Lions early in the season when they had all their people, and I thought they could be the team this year. And I love an underdog story. The Canadian kid, like from, I don't know if he's from Oakville or Victoria. I'm not sure what the whole thing is there, but so my heart would want to cheer for the underdog team and see this explosive offense come and make some noise. I just have too much respect for what Wade Miller, Kyle Walters, Michael Shea, Zach Claris, and everybody has done there in Winnipeg, and I can appreciate this whole like dynasty thing as well. And Zach's my buddy. So I can't go against them. But like I don't have a lot of confidence in either final this week, but I'm gonna choose the Bombers if I have to make a choice on the West.
John, at some point, and I think we saw it in Hamilton, and at least for 3 quarters, because then they stormed back and actually made it a game. But isn't there a chance the Bombers lay an egg? And I know it's tough to do in front of that beautiful crowd that they have and the atmosphere there, but I guess they're coached so well. Is there a chance, John?
I mean, there's absolutely a chance. I mean, you look at the Bombers top to bottom. I mean, they've been as good a football team in the CFL as you could ask for over the last, 3 seasons. And, the last 2 seasons especially. And, this should be the premier event in Canada this weekend. Everybody should be talking about this. This should be, talked about in all the media outlets, because we've got a Canadian quarterback and Nathan Rourke who has an opportunity to kind of slay the dragon, so to speak, here and knock off a team that's, ever since they beat Calgary in the 2019 first round of the playoffs there, seemingly hasn't lost in an important game since. And the Blue Bombers, have an opportunity here to really cement their legacy as, this is a dynasty. They've won, 3 consecutive Grey Cups. They could be that team too. So, I mean, this is, it's got plenty of storylines, should be getting plenty of national attention, and should definitely draw a national audience. And, there's definitely an opportunity that the Blue Bombers, sooner or later, these guys are going to get old. I talked to some people earlier this season. I said, is this the year? I used to play with Stanley Bryant. That's not good. Stanley is very old. He's 30. Stanley was older than me. He's 36, 37. There's some other guys, they're getting, late 30s there. They're not getting any younger. So how long can they stretch this window? Well, they've stretched it pretty far. Can they stretch it, this more playoffs? Can they stretch it again? Can they stretch it further? We're going to see. They're a well-coached team, top to bottom. They got lots of great things going on there. And, and I think that, we're going to see what they're able to do this weekend.
Andy to the east there.
So what was your pick?
I'm going to say the Blue Bombers should be the team that, they still got this window. They should be able to do it.
I kind of thought you were leaning there, but I'd left it alone. Thanks for the clarification there, Andy. Good, well, good job. Good broadcasting skills.
I don't like making picks, and so if I had to, John had to.
All right, so I'll force you. Who's going to win the East final there, Andy?
Again, I don't have a ton of confidence in this game, picking this game, I should say. But I think both, just like the Bombers, the Argos are more built to kind of win in this position. I don't know if the Ontario will have as much weather implications as Winnipeg will, but I love the Argonaut defense. I think they're very strong, and then their offensive attack, like McLeod Bethel-Thompson, he can spread the ball around, but AJ Ouellette's just a physical runner, a playoff football type of runner. I think Toronto's a wild card team. They can lose to anybody in this league, but they can beat anybody in this league, and they'd have they could win the whole thing this year. I got the Argos.
Derek, why? I mean, I think this has been kind of going on all year long, and maybe it's a chip on the shoulder that the Argonauts are going to build off of. But why do we feel like the Argos kind of maybe backed into the East Championship, or they just don't seem to get the respect that maybe they think they deserve?
Well, and this is my thing with the Argos and why I think the Owls win next week. I don't know what the Argos are. There a lot of good pieces on that defense. I mean, especially up front, and then Peters leads the league in interceptions. But on offense, who's their weapon? Like Gittins Mittens goes over 1,000 yards, but I kind of don't know. Davaris Daniels, I don't know what he is this season. Number 17, I've lost his name, former Calgary Stampeder. I kind of don't know what Calgary is on offense.
Ambles?
Thank you. Markeith Ambles is the name I lost there for a moment. I just don't know what they are, and who's likely to pop in a big game, and who's the guy who's going to have the Keon Hatcher level game, in an East final. And they didn't do particularly well in last year's East final against the Ticats, despite everything being in their favor. And I kind of don't know what McLeod Bethel-Thompson is on a week in, week out basis. To me, I can kind of define what Montreal is in a defense that loves to attack you and blitzes more than anybody else, and an offense that has major big play weapons. They don't have a ton of them, but they do have them, and they have a quarterback who I believe is consistent enough, or at least high enough floor with the potential for high enough ceiling to win a game on the road. So I'm just puzzled at what the Argos are, despite having seen them 18 times. So I'm on Montreal in this game.
Split the tie, John.
Yeah, I'd be leaning towards the Toronto Argos. The reason being is that, they got a great defensive line. You look at Jared Davis, Sean Oakman. They got Corey Mace leading the defense, leading the charge over there with the, we always joking here in Calgary, calling them the Calgary Stampeders East, because they got a lot of Stampeders in that roster, a lot of continuity from different coaching staffs and designs. And I just think that defensive line in Toronto causes problems. Sean Oakman and Jared Davis are able to rush the passer. They don't need to bring blitz patterns. They can line up with 4 and get to the quarterback. If you can get to the quarterback, in the CFL with 4, you're going to kill a lot of drives. They end up getting 5-6 sacks, or they can get quarterbacks that are, running out of the pocket, off balance. I think that they can do a lot to win the football game there. They got McLeod Bethel-Thompson. We joke around in Calgary, call him the law firm. I think that's one of the better nicknames. But if they can, get him going and, get him finding some wide receivers, I think he's a perfect example of a game manager in the CFL. He's never going to light up the scoreboard and say, oh, wow, he won them the football game, but he probably can do just enough to make sure they don't lose. And I think the defense will have the opportunity to win the football game for them.
I love it, guys. That was fantastic stuff. Really appreciate your time, your expertise, your knowledge, opinions. Always is what we want here on the CFL this week. So thank you so much for joining us, Andy. When fans want to, ask you questions or keep in contact with you, how do they do so?
I guess you can reach me on Instagram.
Sure,
it's probably the best way. I'm not a big social media guy. I gotta check. I think it's a Fantuz.
That's easy enough.
Let me check here. Yeah, no, yeah, a Fantuz is my handle. Had to double check there.
Derek, where do we find you?
I wouldn't add that I don't love social media, but I got to do it in course of the job at DT on OB. And come Sunday for the West Final, that's 680 CJOB. You can get to us online and hear the great Doug Brown and myself call the Bombers going to a third straight Grey Cup, he said with his fingers crossed.
John, are you available on social media?
Sure, yeah. I've been more of a social media guy, I guess, than these last two. But you can find me on Twitter at JohnW_Bender, or you can find me on Instagram at JohnW.Bender.
Hey, guys, thank you so much. We look forward to it. Hey, folks, you can find us on your favorite podcast catcher, anywhere you're watching CFL content. We have the best here on the Ticats Audio Network. If you so choose, you can also see this podcast on YouTube. Like, subscribe, ask a question, comment. We love it when you do so. And let us know when we do good. Let us know when you want to see or hear more. Thank you very much once again, guys. Much appreciated for your time. This has been the CFL This Week on the Ticats Audio Network, and we will see you next week.
The CFL This Week with Bubba O'Neil. Subscribe, like, and get the deepest takes on Canada's game every Monday.